like I was saying, when you read lyrics, it's one thing to read a poem, but it's another thing to read song lyrics. And I've got to say, I had no idea it was going to sound like this. I mean, and not that I thought that it was going to be bad or anything, but I really couldn't place those lyrics in the music but as soon as I heard it and heard Chris Martin's voice and really the great, at first with the really delicate and finely played piano accompaniment, and then the way it kind of blossoms into the chorus, I think it has a very there's a sense of wonder to it that I really like, and it goes really well too with the lyric video that you posted. I think that imagery actually matches the tone of the song extremely well. And I don't know, I feel a little bit inspired, and it's nice and slow, but it feels meaningful, and there's a magical quality to it that I think sends somewhat of a positive message, but you can also feel that it's not all, peaches and cream. There is some darkness behind it. So I really like it. To be honest with you, I prefer it, I think, to Taylor Swift's Safe and Sound, which I liked a lot when it first came out, but I ended up liking several songs on the Songs from District 12 soundtrack a little bit more than that one. I think this one I prefer just a little bit because of the source material, but also just because it's just a really nice song to listen to, and I think it can kind of get you going with the nice slow, but it's modest, but yet there's an emotion behind it. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me, and I think you really worded that very well. And I guess I'll quickly share my thoughts. I mentioned this, I don't know if it was last week. At some point I mentioned the fact that I'm not really a big Coldplay fan. That's not to say that I don't like their music. I do, but I just don't, actively listen to them. And so I like this song, but what I've also seen is that Coldplay fans really seem to love it as well. Like Coldplay fans who aren't necessarily fans of the Hunger Games, they seem to really appreciate this piece. And I've seen a lot of them saying, this reminds them of the old Coldplay. And because I'm not a fan, I have no idea what that means. I don't know what the old Coldplay is, but I just think it's cool that fans of Coldplay seem to really be liking it as well. So maybe we'll gain some new Hunger Games fans. But yeah, I really like it.
I love that. No, I think that's really important because one of the things that was nice about the Taylor Swift song, and let's not, by the way, discredit the Civil Wars, who were major contributors to that song and really made that song, I thought, in fact, the best part of the song in many respects. No disrespect to Taylor Swift. I just really like the music. But I think it is neat because Coldplay does have more of an adult fan following, and it's not necessarily the same demographic either as Hunger Games fans. And I think that's wonderful that you're reaching out to a different fan base, bringing them in, and as you said, perhaps indoctrinating them into the Hunger Games. And yet, at the same time, as someone who is somewhat of a fan of Coldplay, I wouldn't call myself a very knowledgeable diehard fan, but I have liked them over the years. There is something that they do, I think, better than anyone else since U2, really, which is they have these really dramatic moments in their music that with other bands seems to be cheesy, but somehow it works when they do it. They really did that very well, and I think that's what, when people are saying it's like their old stuff, I think it reminds people of their music from 5 or 6 years ago when they used to do that kind of thing, even more so. So I really like it, but I think I've hogged the mic enough. Sorry, Savanna, and I kind of cut you off.
No, that's fine. The only other thing, or the only other two things I was going to say is I think this was a great song to release first because, like Safe and Sound, I definitely think it will make it onto the radio. It sounds very radio worthy to me. I know it's already debuted on a bunch of radio stations, so I think that's I think that's cool. And also, I just was going to ask you, Adam. So one of the recurring or repeating lyrics in the song is "I'll carry your world," and I really want to know how different people interpret that. Do you interpret it as sort of being Katniss telling the world, I will carry you and save you. I know I've seen some people saying that they think it might be Peeta speaking to Katniss. How do you interpret that "I'll carry your world" line?
Yeah, I don't know who's speaking to whom, actually, and it's something that I guess it's the most prevalent lyric, so it's clearly important.
And see, I guess I'm thinking about, and we talked about this last week or whenever it was, the title's Atlas, and I'm assuming, that's referring to Atlas from Greek mythology, who I think he was a Titan, and he literally carried or held the world on his back. And I feel like that's sort of, analogous, like with what Katniss is experiencing you know what I mean? Like she's kind of becoming this beacon for the entirety of Panem to look to. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how to interpret it. What were you going to say? Sorry.
No, I think there's a part of me that almost feels like it's Katniss, like just saying I'll carry everything. But then you're right. Your world, there's a specific emphasis. So, I'm curious to hear what the panel thinks about, because I'm sure.
Yeah, I am too. So let's go to Tiffany. And Tiffany, you can tell us, whatever you want, your thoughts on the song, how you interpret that lyric. We want to know what's inside the mind of Tiffany.
Okay. Well, I've been a casual fan, I guess, of Coldplay for several years, and I do agree that it's very much like their older stuff. For some reason, I assumed it would be when I heard Coldplay was doing a song and I read the lyrics. For whatever reason, I thought it was going to be a little bit faster. So I was very surprised for how slow it was, but I like it. So that's kind of my initial reaction. I also really loved the lyric video. I only just watched it, super recently, so it was just a very calming thing to watch. As far as the "I'll carry your world" lyric, I feel like it could apply to, several of the characters. It could apply to Katniss. It could apply to Peeta. It could apply to Finnick. It really, I feel like there's no wrong way to interpret that. And that's it.
Well, I think that's such a great point. Maybe it is meant to be from the perspective of multiple characters. Because I agree with you. I think you could easily say, well, this is Finnick talking here, or even Gale. Like you could say this is Gale. So that's kind of cool. Natalie, what do you think?
I just don't like the video. It is a bit slow, but I guess that it's meant to be more somber and reflecting the fact that you have to go back into the games. I totally agree with your analysis of it being Atlas. I also really liked how the video had the other kind of constellation characters, because with all of it's good that it's coming out, or it's fitting that it's coming out right now, because we just had on the Hunger Games Explorer that great panoramic shot of all the victors in their wetsuits, in different poses, and so I was really getting a lot of parallels there with the constellations up in the sky and the different personalities that we've always ascribed to those. Not that you could match every single victor one, but be kind of a fun thing to try and do. So I thought visually that was totally spot on. I don't know, I just say to Adam, I still have sort of a soft spot for Safe and Sound, and I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan, but something about, I feel like there was more of a mood and a setting to it. I really did feel like I was in this weird kind of dystopian but regressed future, whereas with this it feels more like a Coldplay song.
I could see that. I could see that. No, and look, I thought the Taylor Swift thing was great, so I wasn't trying to put it down. I mean, it's documented. You can go back and listen to the Safe and Sound episode. I think I had some raving things to say about it. So
but
it's not that I didn't like it. I did like it a lot, actually. I think I just started to like certain songs more that were on the Songs of District 12 album.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I don't. Yeah. I mean, my personal favorite is Abraham's Daughter. For me, I don't know if any song will ever top that, just because I think it's it's so great. But I do like Atlas. And Natalie, what you said about the video, about the lyric video, I was going to mention. There is so much symbolism within that video, and I encourage everyone to kind of watch it and rewatch it and look at all of the stuff that's in there. It's like you mentioned, it's set in space. So we have stars and the sun and galaxies, as well as all of these constellations. And some of the things, and I'm by no means an expert on these things, but a couple of things that I noticed that I was just going to mention. One thing that we see at one point is the Sagittarius constellation, which is in Greek mythology represented by a centaur archer. Sagittarius is the Latin word for archer, and so it all kind of ties into the Roman themes in the book, and of course the Katniss plant that Katniss is named after. I think probably a lot of you know about this already, but the official or scientific name for that plant is Sagittarius. So that's really cool.